Alright, hello and welcome to the first official Berkeley Squares sports podcast. I'm Harry Dayus, I'm joined by Alex Makin.
Hello.
Joe Mason.
Hello.
Jake Garrod.
Hello.
And lastly, James Oware.
Hello.
So this week's podcast is going to mainly be focused around football. It's such an important time period in the year at the moment. You've got Champions League, the season's just finished, and you've got World Cup on the horizon. So yeah, this weekend, quite a big game going on in Kiev on Saturday. Champions League final between Liverpool and Real Madrid. Set to be one of the most entertaining UEFA Champions League finals of all time. What are we thinking?
Two very attacking teams, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got Ronaldo going for his sixth consecutive top scorer in the Champions League. But then Liverpool, Salah, Mane, Firmino.
Yeah, I mean Mo Salah this season, world class. Let's be honest for a minute.
World class.
Unplayable at times. In full flow, better than Ronaldo for me this season. Controversial, I know, but
yeah, that's fair enough. That's a decent opinion. James, you're a Liverpool fan yourself. What have you been thinking of that front three all season?
It's been amazing. 90 goals between them through the whole season, all competitions.
29 goals alone in the Champions League.
I know.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Breaking scoring records all over the shop. So what are we all thinking for score-wise? Are we thinking a Real Madrid win,
The thing is, Real Madrid, people go on about how Liverpool will be able to counter them and things, Marcelo getting forward too much, but I think the thing is, Real Madrid are going to be aware of this. And they've been there, they've done it, they played against all sorts of teams in the Champions League. And I think that they'll have a game plan to stop Salah and Mane from getting into those spaces. And I can't really look past them winning, unfortunately, as much as I'd like them to lose.
The thing with Marcelo as well going forward is that they have the necessary formation to cover him. When Marcelo goes forward, Varane or Ramos pushes out wide, Casemiro just plays a bit deeper. It's like what Brazil did at the 2010 World Cup with Makin. When Makin would go forward, or Lucio go forward, Gilberto Silva would just drop it and hold it up. They know how to cover for him.
That's a great memory, Alex. I've got to say.
I'd like to just the World Cup on the horizon thought.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a decent. But yeah, with the Real Madrid obviously having one of the best squads, if not the best squad in the world, where do you think their weak points are that Liverpool can attack or take advantage of?
I mean, pace-wise, Salah, Mane on the fullbacks is an option.
Personally, I'm not a massive fan of Varane. I know people regard him as one of the best, centre backs in the world, but I'm not really so keen on him. I think he is, much like a lot of Real Madrid's team, he is liable to a mistake every now and then. We've got, Varane, Marcelo's liable to a mistake, Keylor Navas. I mean, what do you guys think?
I mean, all footballers are liable to mistakes, really.
Well, yeah.
And I think Varane, as a ball-playing centre-back, is very good. He's comfortable with those feet. And I think physically, he's not slow, Varane. I mean, obviously he's not going to be keeping up with Salah, but he's not going to be that far off.
Yeah.
I think physically, what Varane might be lacking technically, he makes up for physically.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and of course, our friend Zinedine Zidane, aka Zidane, could become the first head coach to win Champions League title 3 times in a row. Is he one of the best, if not the best manager in the world at the moment, or has he just been blessed with the players he needs to be able to win these titles? So, what are your guys' opinions on him as a manager?
He was handed a very, very good squad, but that shouldn't detract away from the fact that what he has achieved whilst he's there is incredible, because if you look at other managers, for example Pep Guardiola at Barcelona, he had possibly like the greatest ever club team at his disposal, and he couldn't win it twice in a row. He couldn't achieve what Zidane has done. Whilst I think, obviously, I don't think he's as good as someone as like Pep, but what he has achieved cannot be taken away from him.
But if you look at their league form this season, I think they've won one of their previous 5 games.
Yeah, that's
not just in the league, but in the Champions League as well. But I think their previous 3 league games were like draw, win, draw. And realistically, I think in a league that they're playing in, I think they realistically should be doing better. And then they have to take advantage of going up against a Barcelona or Atletico Madrid and be able to do better against them than what they're doing at the moment. I think
there's always a degree of luck needed, like as a given. But the second leg in the semi-final against Bayern Munich, I mean, Lewandowski was not in good form. I think Real Madrid were lucky to get through that as in the way that they did. And I mean, I could see it going Liverpool's way, to be honest. I reckon 2-1 to Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's a big shout.
James, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking 3-2 Liverpool.
3-2 Liverpool. Personally, I think 2-2. Extra time, it'll be 4-2 Real. By the end, Jake?
I'm not sure about score, but the fact is this Real Madrid team will give Liverpool chances. It's just whether Liverpool can stay resolute at the back. However, the problem with this Real Madrid side is, from a Liverpool perspective, they just have a way of winning the Champions League.
Yeah.
You can't really put your finger on what it is, but sometimes it's a refereeing decision. But it probably boils down to their mentality. They have a winning mentality in this competition. So I think Liverpool will probably play very well for about an hour. I think they may even lead at one point, but I think I'm going to probably go for Real Madrid to win 3-1 after like a kind of a close, quite even first hour or so.
Yeah. I saw a stat yesterday that was something like the teams that have gone up, 6 out of the 7 teams that have gone up in within 10 minutes or something have ended up losing the game or something like that. And that's, that could be a telling sign of where Liverpool could go wrong. They'll go hard from the start, and that might be their and that might be their downfall, sort of. Joe, what do you think?
You can really see it turning into a bit of a chess match almost. Zidane is pretty well known for making unexpected subs, and equally, Klopp is not exactly the most predictable of managers, but I really can't look past Real, unfortunately.
Yeah, and of course Liverpool have won been in 8 European Cup finals, Real have been in 16. Is that experience going to be something that's going to obviously play into Real's hands?
Not much of the squad left. I mean, with Real, obviously recently they've been experienced, they've been in this position before, so they know how to act.
Yeah.
I think someone who could actually be very influential is Isco. If he's playing centrally, probably behind Ronaldo as a striker, I think technically he's one of the best players in the world right now. And as solid as someone like Jordan Henderson or James Milner might be, it's unlikely that they will be able to keep up with him.
Yeah. And of course, some of the Liverpool players that might be making a bit of an impact in the squad. You've got players like Salah and Mane are the obvious shouts to say, but then who else is there that could possibly make an impact in that team?
Someone who's been a little bit off the radar recently, but is apparently a rumour to be actually in contention for the Champions League final, is Emre Can. He could be a very key figure, because not only does he have the physicality of Henderson, but he does also have an eye for a pass, a good long shot on him. I mean, you remember his volley against, was it Watford, I think?
Watford last season.
I mean, that shows his technical ability, and I think him in a deeper role, looking in behind for the likes of Salah and Mane, could be a way to go for them, especially if Marcelo's pushing forward. But then, I mean, if Marcelo's pushing forward and Mane's not backtracking, it's going to be very hard if it's Alexander-Arnold to deal with Marcelo and potentially the likes of Bale or Asensio.
But he's no James Milner, is he?
He is no James Milner.
Highest assister in the Champions League in one season of all time. And that is mental to see someone like James Milner, who, you'd never see him get into this stage of his career playing in the Champions League final, would you, realistically? Up there with players like Iniesta, players like that, who you'd expect to be up the top like that. And a bit ridiculous to see someone like that there.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose with Liverpool there's a certain aerial advantage. I think a few of his assists may have come from dead balls.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't take away from the fact. What is it now, 12, 13 assists?
I can't
It's 9.
It's 9 months, yeah.
Yeah, and so moving on from that, it's been a week full of managerial appointments after a season that saw quite a few big name managers leaving their respective clubs. Of course, you had Wenger, and then you had Moisey, Allardyce, Perhaps the biggest appointment of the week was Unai Emery at Arsenal, master in winning Mickey Mouse trophies. 3 Europa Leagues to his name. Is he what Arsenal need right now? Is he the best appointment they could have got?
At first, I was sceptical because of his record at PSG, where he didn't win the league in his first season with by far and away the best squad. However, I think he is a very, very good fit for Arsenal.
Yeah.
If you look at the comparison between the state of Arsenal now and West Sevilla, or this Sevilla team, he's similar. There are similarities. So he's working on a low budget, and I think the reason why he got given the job is because he did a presentation which the board were very impressed by, which is ultimately why he got picked over Arteta. And so it appears that he's put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah.
And I think whilst there is some scepticism because his record at PSG wasn't great, I think he could actually end up being a very good manager for them. And also, if you look at Wenger, when he was first there, he was plucked from relative obscurity. So there are also, I think, some parallels.
I think you have to look
at
the parallels between them. Wenger plays quite an attacking style of football. Unai Emery plays with that as well. I don't think, Wenger not so much to too much of an extent as Unai Emery does, but there is quite a focus on driving forward with the ball with Emery, and you have to obviously he's been blessed with such an incredible squad at PSG, and he's not going to have that luxury at Arsenal. But I don't think there was anyone that they could have got that was better than Unai Emery as a fit for them. I think there's obviously better managers that they were going for. They were going for someone like Allegri, And I'd never, realistically, I don't think Allegri would consider going to Arsenal as even a...
Yeah, that's part of it, because things like Emery, this is a big deal for him. You can tell he's really determined for this to succeed, and he's been doing all his press conferences is in English, even though he doesn't speak the language very well. He really wants to rekindle some kind of relationship with the fans early on.
Yeah.
The thing is, if someone like El Cholo, Diego Simeone came in, or Allegri,
or even Rafa.
Yeah, or Rafa. I don't think they would have had that. I don't think they would have really been taking it seriously. This is like his big break almost.
Yeah.
So that could play into his
I
hands.
mean, the alternative options as well, if you were not to have picked an experienced manager like Emery or Simeone or whoever it might have been, there was talk of a lot of like the old Invincibles coming back.
Vieira.
I mean,
Arteta obviously not.
Vieira, Henry. For me, someone who I think I'm not sure if he's actually into like the managerial scene right now is Dennis Bergkamp. I think there have been very few players like him with vision, the way he did, the way he understood and read the game. And I think maybe it would have been too soon for him to have a job as big as Arsenal. But I think it would be quite nice to see him at a club with his sort of level of vision and just ability.
They needed to go for someone who was experienced in the game at such a big club as Arsenal. But I don't think they needed to go for someone like an old name in the game. Like
I think potentially the next manager after Emery could be an ex-Arsenal player. I think that's
unless Emery's not going to do a Wenger and stay there for 20 years or whatever.
I think that is possibly their long-term plan. And if you look at some of the players that have played for Arsenal in recent years, you've got Vieira, who's head coach in America, Henry's
Belgium
assistant coach for Belgium. I think there's a lot of potential for an ex-legend to come back there.
Emery said in his interview, it's very important for the club after 2 years outside the Champions League to work to be the best team in the Premier League and also in the world. What do you think of that? Do you think he's aiming too high there, or...?
I mean, I think he's trying to win it with the fans. I mean, we've seen with the likes of Arsenal Fan TV that the fans do actually have quite a big impact on social media, and that obviously sort of contributes to the actual sort of... What's the word?
That's the reason why the Wenger upgrade was so strong, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Arsenal Fan TV pushed that forward, and you can't act as if they're just a joke now. They're a bit of a meme, but like you have to look at how much of an influence they do have on the club, and like all those protests that happened outside the ground, that was like driven forward by them.
I mean, when they first became famous, even Arsenal fans called them nutcases. But by the end of it, the majority of Arsenal fans were agreeing with what they're saying and agreeing with their stance on Arsene Wenger. So I think their influence may die down, but they're still very much relevant.
There's only so much that Emery could do. Though, if you think about them, Arsenal are notoriously bad in the transfer market with their signings and even just doing deals, let alone getting the right players in. I think Aubameyang is a very good signing, but I think Lacazette has not really kicked on.
Yeah.
Mustafi has been less than mediocre, and in general they've not been successful in recent years, and that's got to change.
Yeah. So moving on to the other North London club, we've got Tottenham. Perhaps made the biggest managerial appointment of the week. Renewal, but bringing in Pochettino with a new 5-year deal, renewing his contract, and that is driving off quite a lot of interest from other clubs. You had Chelsea with potentially even Real Madrid. Yeah. Conte leaving at the end of the season potentially at Chelsea. And it's driving off a lot of interest. Pochettino, perhaps by a lot of people considered one of the best managers in the Premier League. Can you put him in that elite, even when he hasn't won a major trophy as of yet?
He hasn't won a major trophy, but he's taken Spurs from a solid Europa League side to a team that is consistently now qualified for the Champions League. And if you look at the signings he's made, they haven't been big. If you look at the players, he's like converted the likes of Harry Kane, Eriksen into genuinely world-class players. Yeah. And he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I think, although he hasn't won a trophy yet, eventually he will have to win a trophy. But at the minute, the way he's developed that Spurs squad is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, with the money he's spent and the players he's brought through youth-wise, you've got Harry Kane coming up through the academy, then you've got him spending pennies on Dele Alli. Was it 5 million? So not really pennies, but pennies in retrospect of how good he is now. He did he was relatively an obscure player at the time. You know, one of the best players in League One, but you would never have expected him to reach the heights that he's got to.
Yeah.
You know, he's someone that England are relying on so heavily in the World Cup. You know, it's like
I think there's a little bit extra to say as well. I think the fact that Pochettino obviously wants trophies. You know, he wants to bring the trophies to the fans. That's what the fans are after. And I think, I mean, I might be reading into it too much, but I can't imagine him agreeing a new contract unless him and Levy reach an agreement in terms of transfer budgets and wages, because Levy is notorious for being very tight with his money, a bit of a wheel dealer in the transfer market, and I have a nagging suspicion that perhaps there's going to be a bit of money made more available this summer. You know, talk of Alderweireld leaving for Man United for like 75 million. Moussa Dembele, let's talk of him, he might be on the way out, and obviously there's always interest in Harry Kane. I think Alderweireld, was he 30, 31 for 75 million?
Is he that old, is he?
Yeah. I mean, I'd let him go for that, and I think if money is being invested into the club, I think Tottenham could, quite worryingly, be real contenders for the Premier League next season.
A club that performed quite a lot worse than either of those two clubs this season was West Ham, who sort of had a resurgence towards the end of the season, or midway through the season, managed to drive themselves up away from the relegation spots. They, of course, sacked David. Did he get sacked? David Moyes? Or did he leave?
Well, he left.
So it means he was sacked then. They, of course, appointed Manuel Pellegrini this week, ex-Man City boss. That was his last major job before moving to China for 2 years.
That's a fantastic point.
That is an incredible appointment.
I think what they have to do is they have to, not only do they have to back the manager in the transfer market, they have to make sure they get the recruitment right. Yeah. Because the team, for whatever reason this year, hasn't been good enough.
Yeah, very reliant on Marko.
Very reliant on Arnautovic. And the problem is, you look at Everton this year, I mean, they spent more money than most clubs and they were very, very average.
They have to spend it right, don't they?
They have to spend it right. They can't. I mean, they've been linked with Yaya Toure, but I think whilst he's a good player, there's a danger there if they sign too many old players.
Yeah, he was saying yesterday that he would consider a move to Manchester United. That's just ridiculous, isn't it? Like, after leaving Man City, you know, being such an important player for them for a few years, and then just saying, "Oh, I'll go to Manchester."
He wants to play at the top level, doesn't he? He still wants trophies. He wants Champions Leagues, he wants FA Cups. He wants.
But he's going to be on a lot of money. Is the problem? You know, I don't think he's the perfect fit for West Ham. I mean, David Gold, their owner, saying that they're going to invest the most amount of money so far into the club this summer. Looking to bring in 4 or 5 players that Pellegrini wants.
If that's true, they'll do well. But the problem with that West Ham board is they've said a lot of things which they haven't backed up.
Yeah.
For example, saying that they will be challenging for the Europa League places, which hasn't happened yet.
But do you think that could come this season with those 4 or 5 signings that could be, you know, so influential in their season? You know, you've got spending a lot of money potentially this summer.
If you look at what Burnley have achieved, we're spending very little money. If West Ham get their recruitment right, then they will definitely potentially could be challenging.
They've got the stadium for it.
For that 7th Europa League spot, if you expect the top 6 to be a lot better, like this year, West Ham could be real contenders for that 7th spot.
With some of the quality they already have. I mean, like Manuel Lanzini. I mean, there was talks of him replacing Coutinho at Liverpool, but that seems to have gone. His technical ability, obviously Arnautovic. I mean, Andy Carroll on his day is a very challenging striker to play against. Mikel Antonio, really very solid. Winston Reid, Aaron Cresswell, bit of talk of him maybe. Should he have gone to the World Cup?
What do you think?
The issue is with West Ham and Pellegrini is that Pellegrini has not been that consistent in the transfer market when he was at Man City. I think if you look at the side now, he was only there 3-4 years ago. The only real player that he brought in that's an influential part of the team is Fernandinho, and the rest of the guys are Navas, Demichelis.
Mangala was that? That was Pellegrini, wasn't it? Yeah. And that's just gone downhill.
Yeah, and exactly. So they need to really make sure that he can first of all get the deals, and that's the right deals. Because if you look at people like Negredo, even if they start off well, you know, he came to Besiktas, and ever since then, it's all gone wrong for him.
Yeah. So moving on. Of course, Man City don't have many of these players in their squad, but England squad, right? Actually, no, they have a few. All right, fair enough. England squad. Some interesting selections and some interesting players who are actually left out. What do we all think of the squad? You've got Butland, Pickford, Pope. I think that was pretty short. Some people saying that
he's made the right decision on the goal.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not entirely convinced. I think all three could start. You can make a case for any of them starting.
Pope for me.
And Yeah, Pope.
For me, yeah.
Pickford for me.
Personally, I'd say Butland.
See that? There you go. There's usually you have one nailed on. Like at the last World Cup, I think it was Hart and then Forster and Foster, and it's obvious that Hart's going to start out of the three. On the subject of Hart, is there potential? Well, should he have gone?
No.
This is an overwhelming no.
I know it's an overwhelming no, but
he has the experience, granted, but
they don't need experience. They've got enough.
But when you ever gonna not really got enough experience? If you look at the squad, he's the there's not many players. Harry Kane's never been to a World Cup. Rashford's never been to a World Cup.
I mean, the problem is England. You say World Cup experience, but England haven't been England haven't got to a quarter final or champions since 2006, and the problem is. Yes, he's played at World Cup, but he hasn't got any experience of winning knockout football.
No.
It's immaterial. The fact is he hasn't performed well at all for West Ham this season, and on that basis he just doesn't deserve to be picked.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is quite a positive though having an old head in there, like someone to.
But there is experience. You know, you've got Gary Cahill, who's won a Champions League.
Yeah.
You've got Henderson, who I think is quite underrated as a leader. You know, he's captain Liverpool this season. I think. You know, but even then you've got a coach like Gareth Southgate who's, you know, been part of a successful team at major competitions.
Yeah.
He might be dull, but he knows how to do well.
Look at what he did with the under-21s. Very solid.
Yeah.
What about a man named Trent Alexander-Arnold? What are we thinking about him? Is he a good selection?
He's versatile.
He's versatile.
He's versatile. He's playing the Champions League final.
Yeah, James, you've seen him play quite a lot this season, obviously.
He's prone to a few mistakes. Like I think
we saw that in the second leg of the semi-final, didn't we?
Yeah, Old Trafford away, Marcus Rashford destroyed them for both of their goals. And I think that's something when you're playing against world-class forwards, that's something we've got to worry about. But I believe he won't be starting. I think Trippier and Kyle Walker are more likely to be starting there.
The problem for me is that, you know, he's picked Delph and Trent Alexander-Arnold. They're both good players in their right and they've had good seasons, but the problem is they're going to be the third choice wing backs or full backs. And
I think Delph is. I think Alexander-Arnold is a slightly dodgy one to pick. I don't think we needed that third wing back, but I think Delph is a great selection. Personally.
But the problem for me is I think the central midfield looks a bit bare. You know, the formation that he wants to play, he's been looking at playing at 5 at the back.
Yeah.
So it's likely that the two in the midfield is going to be Henderson and Dyer, and then with Delph backing up.
I mean,
do you think
for me the problem is Dyer has not looked good at central midfield for England.
Yeah, I think well, I thought if they were playing that 5 at the back, Dyer as a ball playing centre back would be one of them.
Yeah.
I think what you see a lot with England. Yeah. I think we sort of do set up with a 4 in some ways. Yeah. We set up with a 4. And then we play Dyer as the holding midfielder, and he drops back to create that 5.
The problem is with Alex. I'd agree with Alex. From my personal opinion, I think Eric Dyer as a ball playing centre half could work incredibly well, but I just think Southgate's not going to play him there. Southgate will play him in central midfield because that's where Southgate has played him. And I think the central midfield area, considering Dele Alli is going to be playing in a more advanced position, is a bit bare, and for me the decision not to take one of Lallana, Shelvey or Wilshere as a kind of a more creative option could potentially prove difficult, because if you look at the central midfield options, you've got Henderson and Dyer who are both solid workhorses. Yeah. Got Loftus-Cheek who provides energy, but if you're looking for someone to pick a pass, you haven't really got.
Personally, I do think Jonjo Shelvey should have been 100%.
He's the best English ball player.
He's not even in the reserve sections. You know, you've got Lewis Cook in there, you've got Adam Lallana in there. But I think if you need someone to chuck in there as a ball playing central midfielder, Jonjo Shelvey is the best we've got. 100% the best we've got. And I think people need to stop talking about this. Oh, he's a bit of a wild card sometimes. No yellow cards in 2018.
Yeah.
People always bring up that card as like, you know, he's so rash. He like sticks a foot in.
And I think
exactly, yeah.
To be playing good attacking football in a team, and for a manager like Rafa Benitez who was quite pragmatic, and for a team that's been down the bottom of the table for most of the season, is also quite impressive. Because you wouldn't usually associate Rafa Benitez with that kind of flair.
Yeah. I think he should have been in there ahead of Alexander-Arnold, personally.
I would probably agree with that. There's no need for 3 right backs.
I'm going to bring up one more player before we finish. Andy Carroll.
Okay, no.
Andy Carroll.
No,
Listen, hear me out. I know he's got a ponytail and he looks like a bit of a mug. He's a bit of a cart horse. But Andy Carroll as a target man. England need a target man.
Personally, I would say if you want a target man, you should take Glenn Murray. You take the person who's had the best. You take the person who's had the best season. You look at Glenn Murray. You also look at Charlie Austin, who's when he's been.
He's not a target man.
Can I just throw Gil Antonio into the mix?
No.
Yeah, I don't think he's played enough. I don't think he's played enough this season. But I think if you want a target man,
none of them are going to stop. None of them are going to start, right? Realistically, Andy Carroll isn't going to start. Glenn Murray isn't going to start, right? So if you want someone to chuck up, say when England were losing to Iceland in the Euros, if we wanted to chuck on, shut up, Alex. If we wanted someone to chuck on in the last few minutes, just to pump the ball up to and then knock it down to a quick striker, he is the best that we've got, and I think he should have been in there.
Can I just quickly say as well? I think the biggest omission is actually Ryan Bertrand. Ryan Bertrand for me is a wing back. He plays a wing back, plays a centre back. Talk about experience. He's captained Southampton to survival this season. He's won the Champions League with Chelsea. He'd fit a 5 at the back. He'd fit a 4 at the back. For me, he's a massive miss. Physical presence, leader as well.
Right, and on that note, I think it's time to end. This was the first official Berkeley Squares Sports podcast, aka football podcast. If you fancy checking some of our other stuff out, visit the website. So thank you for listening. Just to let you know, this was recorded before the Champions League final, so if by any chance it does come out afterwards, then that's the reason why we're still talking about it in the future tense. Right. Au revoir.